Welcome to the fourth show of Sectorverse, presented by Junior VC. Here we have a candid conversation with founders, VCs in specific sectors talking about the niche product that they're building. As in today, we have Viram Shah from Vested Finance. He is specifically from the brokerage industry, trying to help Indians invest in the US markets. So Viram, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have you, specifically because I'm a keen investor in the US markets as well, and interested to know how exactly Vested is helping other Indian retailers, retail investors, kind of to invest in this great market that is just growing by day and kind of helping out the various other industries and to grow by the numbers, right? Start off with, we probably talk about yourself, your journey. How did you move from India, from University of Bombay, then worked in JP Morgan, went to business school in the US, and then you kind of started. Could you just help us tell that story of yours?
Yeah, definitely. Firstly, thanks for having me here, and you guys are doing a really cool job at Junior VC. So kudos to the entire team. I'm a follower as well. And diving into my journey, I mean, it's been a bunch of different things for me. I grew up in a family that is very much in entrepreneurship and doing business, and that's kind of where the roots of wanting to start a company were planted. And ever since a young age, I've been working at our family business, at different businesses, trying to understand what really goes on in a business. How do you run a business? And that's when I realized that one, I really am interested in starting something, and second, that kind of the old economy family business was not for me. I really like more technology, or something that is more cutting edge. And so when I did my engineering, I did it from Mumbai. Post that, I looked for something that would give me a new kind of experience, and that's when I got the opportunity to go to JP Morgan and work in investment banking, and really got exposed to the world of finance there. Spent about 3 years, and I always highly recommend it as an experience to anybody, because you go through a lot in those 3 hectic years of investment banking, and it really prepares you for anything that can be thrown at you in work, and also helps you develop a lot of good skills like structured thinking, attention to detail. So all of those things were things that I developed there. And the entrepreneurship bug always kept coming back. I tried a bunch of ideas during that time, but none really took off. And then I looked at post-graduation, looked at further studies, and that's where I got the opportunity to go to Berkeley to do my MBA at Haas School of Business. And the main reason why I wanted to go there was to be at a space which is very much in the forefront of entrepreneurship and technology. I got the opportunity to be in the Valley, and ever since I went there, it was always just, the entire entrepreneurship ecosystem is overwhelming there. So I completely got caught up, and in a good way, of course, because that's what I wanted to do. And so there, since the first year, started a bunch of different things, tried to do different ideas. For example, mobility was something that I was really obsessed with. Electric vehicles, I believe, are the future. And so we wanted to do something in that space, then in the data analytics space. But none of those really worked out. But in sort of the summer of 2018, my co-founder now, Darwin, he's originally from Indonesia, and I, of course, I'm from India, and both of us connected on this pain point that people in our parts of the world, in our countries, find it very difficult for them to diversify their portfolios internationally. Whereas if you look at portfolios in the US, they are actually very easily allowed to invest in the international markets. It felt unfair to us that why is it that people in these regions cannot do it in an easy manner in this age where everything is pretty much global. And so that's when the seed for Vested was planted, and it's now been about 3 years that we've been working on simplifying cross-border investing.
Very, very cool. I think the whole idea of letting folk, from this part of the world to invest and to help them out is very interesting. I'm assuming you started such a company only because you started trading kind of early in your life, right? Like, so how has trading been an integral part of your life, or why does it nudge you, to help others to build their portfolios in trading?
Yeah. For me, I've always been more of an investor rather than trainer. I don't do short term. Mine is only long only. And in fact, the first investment I ever made was completely, it was completely wiped out in 6 months, which was a very, very big lesson for me. So when I was 14 or 13, I think I invested in this. Now I know it's a multi-level marketing scheme, which basically, as you get on more users, it gets you more and more money. And I was sort of sold by my friend, and it felt like a quick way to make money. And within 6 months, I lost the entire small amount, 15,000, but that was all my savings then. And so that was a big lesson for me to not chase money in the short term, look at long-term horizons. And so that's kind of influenced the way I invest ever since. I really started doing it seriously when I joined JP Morgan, where I learned really how to value companies. How do you look at their business models? How do you look at their management teams? And so that's when my investment journey began. And in fact, as you pointed out rightly, the seed for Vested was planted right there and then, because I was at JP Morgan covering a lot of these global companies. I knew technology companies from China, and knew a lot of technology companies from the US. And so naturally, I wanted to invest in them because I thought I could identify good companies and increase my wealth, right? And then I remember going to my broker at that time and asking him, how do I invest in this really exciting company? And he just laughed at me saying that, Viram, forget about it, it's not possible. And so that kind of stayed with me. And in fact, that was what came back when Darwin and I were looking at different ideas to work on. That pain point came back, and that's when we started working on Vested.
Awesome. So you build the product, and then you go look out for seed money, right? Could you tell us about your journey of how exactly you accessed the seed capital, and how exactly do you use that money to build on your products?
Yeah. So for us, the approach that we took essentially was, as we make progress, we wanted to keep raising money. We didn't want to go ahead and raise all our money in one go and then figure out the product. So what we did was we initially made a beta version and got a bunch of people to sign up on our wait list. And that's when we went out and raised our first round, which was around a small round of 200,000, primarily from connections that we got from business school. So some of our classmates connected us to early stage investors. What we also got very lucky with was some of our waitlist folks were actually the founders of successful companies. So the founders of BharatPe were on our waitlist, and in fact they participated when we started raising money. So we got lucky in that sense. But the approach for us for our seed round has always been that raise some money, make a ton of progress, then go back again, raise some money. So it's sort of called high resolution funding, and you can only do this for seed. Going forward, it becomes more a process driven institutional round. So that's how we started. Then we raised another 500, then we raised another million, and overall then the entire seed round ended up being 3.6 million. And what we got again lucky with was that we had our US presence as well as our India presence, and so we got investors from both sides to come in and buy into our vision. And from the India side, in fact, we tapped into a lot of angel networks. So those, the thinking behind it was that you have an entire team that is batting for your success and helping you with connections. So we thought that in our early stages as first-time entrepreneurs, we didn't really have all of those connections, all of the of angels that was helping us out. So we raised from a couple of angel networks in India, some funds from the US, and now, in fact, we look at our next round very soon.
Very interesting. I think the whole idea of being in the business school and building a product is very exciting because that's where your focus is, right? Your focus, you go there to learn the skills and then apply it in the real world, but you've done that together simultaneously. So you kind of function in two countries, right? You function in the US, you have a team over there, you function as well as in India. How does it actually work for you?
Yeah, so from the very beginning, we knew that we are going to be a multi-country team. And so that has always guided our thinking when we set up processes at Vested. We are headquartered in the US, whereas majority of our team is actually based in India. We're now about 50 members, in fact. And we also have some members from Canada. So even pre-COVID, we always knew we are going to be a remote first team. And that's how we've set up processes. So You don't need to be in an office to be able to work at Vested. You can basically get all the information online through a bunch of tools that we have. You connect to your team members through different channels that we've set up, and of course we keep meeting up now, not so much during COVID, but you need that human connection. So once or twice a year, we all meet up, develop those connections, and then you sort of go back to your teams. Your teams could meet up. So it's sort of a mix, because that human connection cannot be done away with. But remote gives us the advantage that anyone from anywhere can work, and so we don't need to limit ourselves to hiring from any particular country. We can hire across a bunch of different countries, and that allows us to access talent without any restrictions.
I think it's very cool, the idea of the internet products as such enable people to just work on the cloud and not at any particular office. So I'm assuming we know Vested as a tool that gives us the opportunity for us to invest in the US markets. But I'm assuming Vested has a lot more products, or at least has ideas of building a lot more products. Could you just tell us more about what Vested is as an arm, and what is your thought of Vested being in the future?
Yeah, so for us, the end goal is that we want to allow local investors to go global. So that's really the mission that we've set out on. And what we've started off with is the first thing, which is easy access to the world's largest market to Indian investors. So that's really what we've been really working on over the last few months. And over time, though, what we want to do is we want to become that go-to destination for anything cross-border. So if you have any requirements of, let's say, investments, or you want to spend money outside of India, or you want to send money outside of India, all of those are use cases that Vested will become the destination for, and that's what we've been working towards. But right now, the focus continues to be on enabling access to the US market, because that's a big need that is still very much untapped.
Awesome. I think this is a great segue for us to move into the whole sector. Now that you've spoken about what exactly do you envision Vested to be, the idea of doing anything cross borders, but initially you're focusing on basically investing cross borders, right? So you're not alone in this segment, as you may know, and there are a lot of other folks who are kind of building around, right? From India, trying to help retail investors invest overseas. What are your thoughts on your competition? I'm assuming you would have drawn it on your blackboard and realized, okay, for this particular competition, we need to strategize in this particular way. So could you just tell us more about your competition, your thoughts on how exactly will you drive your ship as such?
Yeah. So the way we think about competition is a little different. The major competition that we face at this point in time is essentially people don't have the education as to why they should be investing internationally and how they can invest internationally. If you look at the market, it's very, very early days. So as of 2019, the amount of wealth that was invested internationally from India was about 4.5 billion, which is, if you look at the total wealth that is invested in financial assets in India, it's 0.13% of the total wealth. Now you compare that to developed markets. In the US, 20% of wealth is invested internationally. In China, 5% of wealth is invested internationally. So where we are at is a very, very early stage. And I think for us, the primary goal or the primary competition is just that people don't understand why they should be investing internationally. Of course, there are going to be players that come into the space. One thing in fintech is that it's never winner takes all. The market is huge. I mean, everybody has money and everybody wants to invest, right? So the primary goal for us is, can we provide the easiest solution for somebody to diversify their investment? And if we can do that, if the customers find value, then they will come back and they will tell their friends to come use Vested. So that's really how we think about it.
I think you brought up a very important point, right? The fact that very few Indians actually kind of invest. When you think of it, I was just looking at the records and I realized that only 2% of Indians actually invest in the stock market, right? So when you think of it, why would Indians particularly invest, say, in the US markets and not in the Indian markets when only, they are just introduced to the markets as such?
Yeah. There are quite a few reasons why we've seen people use our platform. It's kind of empirical data. One is, as Indian consumers, we are very plugged into global trends, right? We because of internet and because we are a very globalized country, we read a lot, we watch television shows which are across borders. We use a lot of products from all of these companies. So we know global brands, and so naturally as a consumer, you then want to invest in the companies that you're consuming, and so that naturally leads to, okay, I consume this product, I want to invest in it. Where is it available? It's in the US market. So that's number one. Basically, you're familiar with global brands and you want to invest in them because you believe in them. The second is for somebody who's thinking financially, you don't want to put all your eggs into one basket. I mean, that's essentially the diversification, the reason why you should diversify. You don't want to put all your money in a market that could go up or down and erode all your wealth. So you tend to want to diversify, let's say 10, 15, 20% of your wealth in another market. And so that's where this entire US investing comes in, where you can easily diversify internationally. The third that we see a lot of people, why they sign up is because they have particular international goals. I mean, they could want to go study abroad, like you and I. If we had a dollar store already, we could have used that directly instead of having to send money every time, right, for financing our education. Or you might want to travel internationally, or you might want to migrate for some years, work outside and then come back. So now we're becoming a very global sort of population, and borders really don't hamper us. So to be able to use that wealth internationally is something that we don't have until now. So that's really the other reason why a lot of people come onto the platform and start investing.
Yeah. So I'm assuming the strategy of investing in the US markets and the Indian markets is very different, right? So what is your take for the viewers as to, how do they look at the US markets for investing versus the Indian markets?
Yeah, it definitely is very different. And there are a lot of, right from the way the markets are structured themselves to being able to do fractional investing, to be able to invest commission free. So all of those very, very different. And that's why navigating the US markets and creating a product for the US markets is an entire different beast altogether. But for whoever is looking to create their US portfolio, right, I would caution against not becoming too starry-eyed and investing in a bunch of popular companies that because you end up taking a lot of risk there by investing your entire money in certain stocks. So a way to get started is to look at ETFs, and ETFs essentially allow you to take much less risk, and of course your risk adjusted returns are much better there. So there are a variety of different ETFs you could look at in the US market that for somebody who wants to get started. The other thing that we at Vested have done is we provide these pre-built portfolios that anybody can use to get started in an easy manner. So you don't need to particularly invest in certain companies or research them. You can just start investing through these portfolios, and then as you keep learning about the market, you can pick your own investment. So those are the two things that I ask people to look at before they start investing.
So ETFs are like mutual funds, right? So they are basically a bunch of stocks in that particular sector, and then people can directly invest into that. Is that what you'll define as ETF as?
Yeah, exactly. And versus mutual funds, they are not actively managed. So there's not a lot of shifts in terms of what stocks are on there, but there are still some actively managed ETFs also available on the US market. The other thing is the expense ratio is very, very less. So because there is no fund manager fees involved, you really pay much lesser in terms of fees to the fund than you would pay for a mutual fund. So that's again one big difference. And the third is they traded on the exchange, so you can immediately buy and sell them. You don't need to wait for redemption, and there's no exit load and things like that.
I think you've spoken about a very important topic as such, about the whole commission and free trading as such, right? And now that we've seen a lot of these new age companies that allows retail investors to basically trade from their mobile phones, basically gives them at zero commissions as such, or at least they tell it to be zero commissions, right? So what are the other avenues of revenue generation for a company like Vested, or basically does that brokerage financing as such, when you basically give the investors zero trading fees as such, how do you exactly earn money out of it?
Yeah, so here what you really have to understand, a lot of people sort of look at the zero commissions in the US and wonder why it's not available in India, or how is it that on delivery you get zero commission? So you really have to understand the two different markets, India and the US. In India, essentially every broker that is offering zero commission on delivery is actually making money off of active traders, right? So it's basically you are charging somebody, but you're charging a very active user of your platform so that others on the platform can use it for free. Whereas in the US, the structure is very different. Everybody gets zero commission because the way the market, the entire infrastructure is structured, you can make money on the back end. There are a lot of ways in which, even though the customer is not charged, on the back end, you can make money. Like, the same way all of these brokers in the US make money. One, let's say you have cash lying in one's account, that interest is something that brokers can keep. The second is there is this entire concept of securities lending, which is very common in the US. And then the third, which is sort of controversial, but if you really look at it, it actually makes a lot of sense, is payment for order flow, which Robinhood monetizes from. So in the US, you can do that because all of these different streams are available. And then plus, if you look at vested, on top of it, we're cross-border, right? So there are other revenue streams that open up for us, which is on the money movement you can monetize. So the goal is to make the entire ecosystem as cost-effective for an investor who wants to invest internationally, but also in the meantime, from existing sources in the ecosystem, how can you monetize so that you as a business can also sustain?
Nice. I think you mentioned payment from order flow that many US applications actually do, like Robinhood is one of them, right? Could you just explain what exactly is payment from order flows, so that it's why exactly it's specifically to the US markets and not the Indian markets?
Yeah. So in India, what happens is whenever you place a trade, compulsorily that trade to be completed has to go to an exchange. So it goes to NSE or BSE. But in the US, one, there are multiple exchanges, but second, there is no compulsion for it to go to an exchange to complete that order. Somebody else can also complete it. And so that's where this entire concept of market makers comes in, where a lot of brokers, instead of sending the order to the exchange, can send it to the market maker. And that market maker, in return for getting that order, because across a bunch of brokers, they're getting all of these orders, which allows them to see kind of what's happening in the market. They give you a small rebate. And that's essentially, in a simple manner, what payment for order flow is.
Nice. I think the whole idea of the US markets and the Indian markets is very different. We have discussed about the fact that why exactly the US market seems to be this holy grail because of various companies in various sectors that they have, right? But what is the idea of using the data, the customer data that you get on a daily basis? Because now that you've made it very easy for folks to invest, right? It's much more like a game rather than me going to a broker like in olden days and asking him to buy a particular share. How do you use the data? How does machine learning come into the play? And how does it help you to build your future products?
Yeah, it's really not been explored. Even the largest companies yet haven't explored how they can use AI or machine learning on the data that they're getting from their customers. One of the obvious, of course, uses of it is for you to be able to, or for an entity or a broker to be able to provide insights to the customer, one, on their portfolio, or second also is if you see that the customer is making a mistake, because now, as you mentioned, it's become easier and easier, which also means that people might not be making the right choice if they're getting it at the tip of their hands, right? So as a broker, you want to be able to help your customers not lose money and help them make good financial decisions. So that's another area where data can be used, but it's really not being used at all right now across the ecosystem. And so as companies grow, I hope that a lot of them kind of use this data to help out investors. Because only if the investors gain will the platform work. In a bull run, of course, everything is fine. But when the markets drop, you really need to make sure that people are protected in a sense, and so only those products that can help them out will do well in when the markets turn.
Absolutely right. And the market or the industry as such that you're in is a very cyclical industry, right? When everything shines, your products also shine, the firms also shine. But in a bear market, it's pretty much dull, and investors lose hope in the whole ecosystem and they stop investing. Like, what do you do to help the investors in a bear market? And that we we basically observe this in every 10 years, right? So what does investor kind of learn from it, and how do you help the investor or motivate them to come back to the markets again and start investing?
I mean, it's really, of course, up to them. For us, what we do is we invest a lot in content, and content that allows you to discover a lot of different opportunities that are available in the US market. So recently we did a video on ESG investing and how that really has taken off in the US, and why it's really the future as more and more kind of millennials come into the fray and give priority to different factors than just profit. So educating the customer is our responsibility, prerogative, and then of course it's up to the end customer. We can't force anybody to put in money, and that's what we don't want to do anyway. But giving them the right tools to be able to make decisions is what we try to do. So to discover companies, give them fundamental data that they can look at companies and make their decisions is what we focus on, and then it's up to the end investor, bull or bear market, how they want to invest their money.
I think very cool. So I think we've understood the fact that retail participation is also increasing, right? How does this whole idea of retail investors coming into the market, where before it was just held by a few folks, a few firms at Wall Street who basically kind of invest in these firms. Now we are seeing retail participation coming up. We are seeing a lot of tables turn around where the retail investors have a lot of power. And we've been seeing this off late with various companies like AMC, GameStop, etc. Where do you see the future of stock investing, specifically with the power of retail coming into their own hands?
Yeah, I mean it's very exciting, honestly, because never in history have people had this much access to financial products in an easy manner. And why should they not have access, right? Why do you need to be an ultra rich person to be able to get access to any kind of financial product? So it's quite exciting. I mean, stock investing is one. Like, for example, now Indians can invest in the US stock market. But over time, I think all different kinds of assets will become investable/tradable. And that's really where the future is going to be. Like right now, you're getting access to fractions of US stocks. Now, what if you get access to fractions of US real estate or bonds or hedge funds that were never available to you? So sort of democratization of all sorts of financial products for the retail investor is a theme that has just begun and is likely to play out over the next decade or so. And as Vested, we're very excited to be part of that and enabling it for Indian investors.
Very cool. So we would kind of wrap this segment by just talking about a very hot financial product that is coming up in the market, and which has always been around for at least a decade now, which is the crypto space, right? How does the whole finance sector or even the brokerage sector think about crypto being an asset class as such?
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways in which you could look at it. One, if I put my fintech hat on as a founder, crypto really gives a lot more different opportunities. And we've seen as businesses, whichever business has enabled crypto has seen lower acquisition costs because a lot of people coming in and investing into cryptocurrencies. The second hat as an investor, though, I would definitely be a little cautious because it's really many of the coins are really driven by speculation, and you don't want to be doing speculation, and instead sticking to stocks which are more long term is a better idea in my opinion. However, the technology of cryptocurrencies, blockchain is super promising, and the way we see how India regulates it or how different countries regulate it, because the technology is very promising, but cryptocurrencies or investing in cryptocurrencies is really a sort of a speculation fueled thing, which hopefully over time becomes more and more utility based, and that's where the actual investing value can be got from.
All right, awesome. I think we've got a great insight on how exactly the sector is shaping up. We've realized that it's as easy as it can get for folks from India basically to invest in the US through applications like Vested. Now that we've concluded the segment 3, it's a great segue for us to end the show and talk about various other likings that you have, right? So this is called a lighter note segment. We basically talk about other things apart from vested and finance as such, right? So I'd go ahead and ask you, which founder have you admired the most?
I actually have a lot of them. So currently, I mean, Nitin Kamath Zerodha is one of my favorites, and the way they built the business and sort of revolutionized the Indian brokerage space is very, very interesting.
Awesome. Which is the best place to build a startup today?
Anywhere. I mean, there are don't need to be any borders in today's world.
Awesome. Which is most important for you, scalability or profits?
I think it depends on what kind of business you're in. For a business like ours, we need some time to get our business model in place because it's a very new category that we are creating. So profitability from day one is just not possible because you don't know the monetization stream. So in the meantime, scalability helps us keep developing, getting money and putting it back in the business. Over time, profitability is something that we definitely will look at.
Awesome. Apart from your company, which company do you admire the most?
There are again a lot of companies. I really like what SoFi has done in the US. They've really built a very interesting business and across different financial companies. So financial products. So that's something that I look up to.
If not in fintech brokerage, which industry will you take part in today?
I always keep telling everybody in business school, my first love was mobility. I really am obsessed with electric vehicles, how we can simplify mobility in cities. And so that could have been another entire different path that I would have gone down on.
Well, awesome. It was a pleasure talking to you, Viram. I think you've helped folks to understand the US market better and, kind of help them to invest. And I'm assuming you will probably help them in future as well, not just in investing in the US markets, but helping them access capital and send capital across borders. Pleasure speaking to you.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me here.
Awesome.